So the barriers of communication, the things that hinder communication, the things that prevent communication from being effective. We can categorize them as physiological barriers, physical, uh, cultural, interpersonal barriers, language barriers. So let's look at each of these. So the physiological barriers, just to know that we have senses for hearing, senses for seeing, senses for feeling touch. If these senses are not functioning, then we will not be able to communicate effectively. Okay? So that is basically physiological barriers to communication. So if someone is sick, if someone has not eaten, these are basically things that will prevent that person from concentrating and picking the message. And they are basically physiological issues. Okay, so if you want to be a very good teacher, you need to make sure that people have eaten. When they have eaten, they will listen to you. If you have not eaten, you will communicate, but they will not pick what you're communicating. You will teach and they will not pick what you're communicating. So physical barriers, if you have a physical infrastructure or a physical barrier, for example, I'm now speaking to you in the office. So the other staff are in the other office and my office is already closed. So I can't communicate to them because I'm in an enclosed room. The message cannot easily go out unless I raise my voice. So issues to do with the walls, the doors, the windows, it can be another physical item or body that can prevent the message from reaching the other person. Cultural barriers. Our cultures influence the way we communicate. Jeering, for example, in our country is not very abusive compared to jeering in another country. For example, jeering in Juba here is a form of an exclamation. Okay, instead of someone saying, "Are you sure? Really?" The person will just jeer. Then, so if you're from another country, you may misinterpret that to mean that the person is not actually recognizing what you're trying to tell them. Language barrier. Yes, we have 64 tribes in the country, and the most common language is universally used, like in the country, is Arabic. So if you don't know Arabic, you'll find it difficult to work in different places around the country. Okay, so language becomes a very huge issue in communicating with people. But even when you speak the same language, there is the hidden or complex, there are complex words that can be used even in your own mother tongue that you cannot understand. Okay, the jargons, the complex terms, the buzzwords, you may not really understand. The slangs, okay, these are may be complex. But what is very important is not to use the fact that you are rich in a language to show disrespect to others. Okay? For example, there is a tendency of people who can speak fluent English to think that they are the most intelligent in the room. Yet, knowing a particular language may not be the best measure of intelligence. So we have what we call interpersonal uh, barriers. Okay. If you feel isolated, if you isolate yourself from others, you don't want to come into contact with others. This hinders communication. In the picture that you see that actually people are close to one another, that promotes communication. But I also want to bring in the concept of what we call personal distance. Who can tell us what personal distance is? Personal or personal space in communication. What is personal space in communication? Yeah. Thank you for both your comments. All your comments relate to the fact that there should be a physical distance when you are communicating. If for example, I'll use this from personal experiences, and of course, this also has to be interpreted in terms of context. So, for example, I'm your teacher, and you're coming to consult me on a question that you don't understand. Assuming this is a physical class, I mean, we have you and me are in the same place, in the same campus. So you come to me and say, "Sir, this number here, I don't know what it means. Can you explain it to me?" So I'm seated in a chair, and then you kneel, almost your breast is touching my shoulder. That if that happens, you have entered my personal space. You have entered my personal space. That makes me uncomfortable. You understand that? So when you, even if you're standing, you're conversing with someone, and you are standing, make sure that there is reasonable distance between you and the person that you're communicating to. That is personal space. That is the meaning of personal space. Okay, so when you're interacting, and also if you're lovers, you have gone out for a date, and then the distance between the two of you is too huge, then that's what is that? So it means that you need to understand personal space in terms of professional environment, what it means, and then personal space in if you are intimate and you have gone out for a date, then there's nothing like personal space. I think what could be preferred is that you sit close to one another. But also you have seen, this is also another issue that I've seen when I've moved around hotels in Juba. You see a girlfriend and a boyfriend in a hotel, both of them seated on one side, instead of one sitting across and then looking into one another's eyes or face. What is the, maybe what do you think about that? If you take your girlfriend or your wife out for a date, how are you supposed to sit? Is it opposite or is it on the same side of the table? Let me listen to you. All right. Yes, so the sitting arrangement influences the interpersonal communication. Okay, and if you see these days, if you're going for a meeting, the meeting is done on a round table. Previously, or years ago, the boss could sit in front and then followed by the other bosses, and then the subordinates sit the other sit behind. That's no longer the thing these days. The thing these days is that you sit in a round in a round table when you're having a meeting. This allows you to see everyone within the room, and everyone can be able to communicate. When you are in a meeting, you don't want to project power, where you have the boss sitting on a bigger chair and then the other people sitting on smaller chairs, basically projecting power. Sitting on a round table is what is actually preferred. Okay, so we have emotional barrier, psychological barriers to communication. These stem from a number of factors that influence one's emotional or psychological well-being. Okay, so issues to do with one's perception, negative experiences can lead to avoidance or altered behavior. And then we have issues of emotional distress. If someone has been emotionally abused, they will always be exhibiting signs of emotional distrust, fear, and suspicion all the time. Okay, and then also if someone has never been exposed to a certain exposure, they have never talked to a large group of people. They are meeting people for the first time that they have never met before. So that means that their lived experiences are actually different from others, and then they tend to withdraw. Okay, they withdraw and then not express themselves fully. And then we have the issue of stereotyping, which is basically having a negative perception or assumption about a specific group of people. If you went to church over the weekend, there was a sermon. The church that I went to, there was a sermon about stereotyping. And the example was that someone wanted to rent out his house. Okay? So he communicated that, I need someone to come and occupy my house. I'm not giving it out for rent. So the person brought one person to come and check the place. The moment they met them, they said, no, I'm not going to rent out my house. My house is no longer available for rent. And the reason was that the person came from a particular tribe. Okay? That is what we call stereotyping. So you have assumptions about a particular group of people, regardless of whether the person is actually a person that can be trusted, sincere, regardless of who they are. If they come from that tribe, no. That is what we call stereotyping. So this also affects communication. Okay, this also affects communication. If you have generalizations, people from that place, no. If you have that kind of language in you, then communication will be hindered. Okay, you make judgments about people that are not founded. So we have gone through the barriers of communication, and it's very important to know them. If you know them, you can be a very good communicator. Okay, so that means you really need to understand the barriers to communication.